Another one on the same day, but looking different. So let's put this under the land mammal psychologist series. So if there's any other land mammals that want to challenge me on my claims, land mammal psychologists especially, then be sure to put that challenge in the comments. I got so many fans writing comments. It's amazing. And you know, usually it's when I share certain places or if a video gets a bit more views, then there'll be the ridiculousness of it's almost like they're getting paid to discourage you to do more almost in their comments. Anyways, here's a pattern, I mean, that I know well in my family, but that is not as uncommon as it would have been 2 generations ago. So the path of least resistance. So a form of laziness, intellectual laziness. I have yet to meet people who consistently can resist that trap as well. So the path of least resistance is to accept domestication and aim straight for the norm and raise your kids straight for the norm, which lowers human standards every generation. So that's easier to reach. It's easier to reach in domestics sense, meaning, did I just coin the word domestics? I don't know. Isaac Asimov's got robotics. He didn't coin humanics, but again, humanics, the way he used it is the way that I'm using it as well, in the sense of patterns that can be, let's say, by Harry Seldon consulting with others that, let's say, might have lived a long time or studied different parts of history. These patterns of responses among masses or even individuals are statistically more prone to happen. So let's define humanics in this way right now. And for me, again, it was a action reaction, cause and effect, which my species doesn't seem to comprehend anymore. Something as simple as this compared to other species. Yeah, cause and effect it's pretty easy to see if a species demonstrates sapience in this way, and we don't as a species. Hey, I know somebody exactly who's going to know. Yeah, so as a species, cause and effect is totally outside of our boundaries of comprehension at this stage of our devolution. But anyways, let's get back to the patterns humanics and then go past that. I call myself the Dr. Humanics. You can, an expert in the human condition, something that the people primates who just sell the image of being human have no interest in the human condition. They really don't. They're reality compromised and quite happy with it. Okay, land mammal psychologist series. So when human standards go down, right, you're accepting domestication and training your kids to be so, because that's where you'll have less stress, let's say, in your lives. And of course, accepting this makes them culture breakers and part of the patterns, and devolves the ability to use higher functions of their brains. But because it's a backwards flow, evolution-wise, not to the norm, it's with the norm, but evolution-wise, it's a backwards flow that causes some conflicts inside. So that compromises your health. But you kind of just, my theory can explain it using simple English, but it's not something that you can formulate as schemas when you suffer from this, and explain it, let's say, in like just a really short TED talk, really plain English, and let's say break down like 8 schemas in a row to explain it. Okay, like it could be like a 12-minute TED talk, okay? And still it'd be, wow, that's amazing, it's so different. But if you ask somebody re-explain this thing, is you might even be able to measure at what stage of HsD they suffer. And when you kind of start sensing that you've got it, I tell you, you go deeper in it. That's a very interesting phenomenon that I picked up when I, was coming up with my theory, is like talking about it, or, like providing evidence for it. It's like, okay, well, I predict this is going to happen and you're going to react like this right now. And you kind of if you talk about a hypothetical scenario, you're going to know right and wrong, but in your life, you don't apply it. For example, well, that's an example. HSD has gotten you at its hold, and unfortunately, I predict that this conversation with me is going to cause more turmoil inside of you, which will result in, yeah, you going again in that direction. So towards the norm, but against the evolution of your species, and also evolution itself and how it brought you there. The hardware without testing software and taking your time with building the hardware evolution, but really like way too fast out of desperation is one of the last vlogs I did. So I know a person, and this is, let's put it hypothetical because you probably do, but please don't make diagnoses. I really don't make diagnoses. I keep telling people, in fact, like a day or two ago, I said, be careful with the word narcissistic. What a narcissist is. And again, I said self-involved, egocentric, self-serving, unable to reference the outside world. These fall on the opposite side of the spectrum of egocentric, and they are growing. And some of them, you'll know that pattern, that person is always like this. I've always known them like this. But that's not enough for the diagnosis of narcissistic. Now, I'm not going to diagnose somebody narcissistic because I don't need to do that. I'm not going for a profession that's like that. And I work with individuals without labels, because labels actually, you limit their growth very often with these labels. And that's just one of many patterns I could describe. Psychiatrists have created more mental health in their clients for quite a few decades now, and they also are very much some of the biggest spreaders of HSD. HSD is something I could diagnose you with, and it's pretty easy. And I can predict with your psychological profile what you will do, and I predict also what you'll do if you're by yourself with me or surrounded by peers. And I can more or less give you probabilities. Let's say we speak the same language. This is likely your response. Even some of your nonverbals might be typically like this. So this is my theory. Of course, I can diagnose people with this and give examples. It's my specialty. So don't go and diagnose everybody with this. For you, HSD, if you're really trying to understand, it's really to help yourselves. And when you do, you won't harm your kids anymore. Or not as much. Sorry, you can't really win against the norm at this time, but you can, mitigate or shield or slow down things for the sake of having a strategy for why to do so, for example, and keeping yourself safe and understanding what's coming and other people's behaviors and using that to your advantage. It's one of the greatest sense of security I've ever had, this theory that not only explains my mind, your minds, but gives me a sense of security and understanding the phenomenons that I observe in the patterns and how they're growing, and how that predictability is offering me a sense of security. So let's say somebody's been abusive because, let's say, at some point something clicked in their head, and life would be easier, maybe through a hard time, to get somebody's approval of them, let's say, by being a good domesticate. Okay, and that person already knows the person they want the approval from is not that respectful an individual to get approval from, but it's just they haven't done their own maturation process to stop craving it so much. Well, they'll accept domestication in a way that they don't see. They don't choose, I'll accept domestication for the sake of this. It's not like this. It doesn't work consciously. So what would happen is they would suddenly look for a path of least resistance that best fits, the patterns of their life so far, to, let's say, have a long-term job in a career they may or may not like, and have a retirement plan, that will alleviate their own anxieties and that of other members of their families, and as this has success in their mind, not knowing their mind is very much guided by a lack of emotional intelligence type of maturity, they'll become less and less connected to reality, the objective evaluation of their own lives, but they will feel, you know, that their choices and their knowledge is great wisdom because there is a, you know, in the roller coaster ride, there's some effects that you can feel that they can feel that is less stress or just aiming for the norm, matching the norm. And again, it's not like a norm that's growing in intelligence, so that person will also not grow in intelligence. Now, if that person becomes so good at this and worse than their parents were, let's say, who, you know, also had issues that they didn't overcome and related to, you know, mental illness or addictions or whatever, then that person, uh, as HSD is speeding up, partly because of the internet and partly because we've weaponized psychology instead of use it efficiently to heal ourselves and other things, is they will actually speed up the concept of HSD within a lifetime. And this is happening right now. And this is what I realized. Wow, I'm living through this particular stage of history, which is very unique in very different ways than people describe as unique as the type of independent social scientist that I am. And I guess maybe the category is more sociology, maybe. And so not knowing that when they raise their kids, they're doing this. And they're doing this with such persistence uh, and forcefulness. And that could have been one of their positive strengths if they hadn't fall down this trap of coping mechanisms that lead to just an unobjective view of their own selves and reality and their interaction with others. And they wouldn't have even realized just how toxic they were getting doing this, thinking the love, if only we understood the love they had, or the hard work or the effort they put in to guide us on the right path because they know this right path. And if you'd be a sibling of this person, it's possible that, you know, if they're a twin and they were born a second before you, they use that second for the, oh, look, I'm so much wiser than you for that second. or it could be the siblings have 3 months different. Well, that's because maybe the dad was cheating or something. And that's from a comedian joke that I inserted in. He said, "Isn't it horrible when you got two kids and one's 13-month-old and the other's 9-month-old?" And yeah. So okay, getting back to the topic. I guess I'm a bit hyper, and I'm noticing it, but it doesn't bother me. I'm having fun, and I'm getting back to the topic. And here it is. So let's say, you know, eventually this person's relationship and family breaks down, and you know, it's not their fault because they worked so hard. And but it was a kind of abuse that now is almost barely recognizable because, you know, psychiatrists suffer from HSD as well, and therapists, you know, aren't that good at their job, but they also want to have the path of least resistance, so they'll judge a client instead of working harder on creating rapport. Let's say if they get access to somebody at a certain time to help them, whatever it might be. You know, these are patterns that are growing as well. Not sure in whatever phenomenon of a scenario that I have in my head, but that I'm pretending is hypothetical, is the case, because, you know, the people don't provide honest, objective answers, and it's because partly they hide it from themselves. I mean, it's even hard to get them at the time that they can actually retrieve a memory that is factual, because when it's been filed with what was already a whole majority of schemas that were not reality based. So it's like, so yeah, it's easy for Fox News to go after the folks that suffer from HSD at these levels, because really it's like, we can say anything. We can say the clouds are marshmallows. We've just tested it. And the people might have weird reality-based compromised schemas where that fits in. I thought the air was sweeter today. I think the aliens, whatever it might be, right? I think aliens are becoming more popular to blame, let's say, for the failure of our species than gods used to be. So, anyways, getting back to that, is this particular hypothetical scenario may not be related to me, but again is a lot more common than you think. Is The intensity of this type of abuse, which a lot of psychiatrists might fall under different labels, but not realizing HSD played a big part, and attacking or bringing light to HSD helps every type of mental illness slow down, or even provides awareness safeguards to have them not get worse. So let's say this person is separated or divorced and the kids are grown up, is still, if a scenario comes up, is it, and they say, oh no, that's my past, or that's his life, I'm a grown up now, is you can tell the patterns of response or non-response from these past family members that have been domesticated by force, which is a form of slavery, but it's not, with the same kind of intentions as the past. And by the way, there were forms of slavery in the past that were healthier for our species than this kind, for our species, and also respected human rights a bit more. And it could or could not include things like great structures in the past that were built that had quality that we don't have today. And it's because there were scenarios where people in charge were enforcing quality, and the masses may or may not have learned, what these techniques were, let's say, of concrete or rock or engineering feats but they would learn as they go. But really, they were hard workers, and there was also techniques that these people pursuing quality were able to use, which didn't require the engine-driven machinery we have today. It was more like the force of nature, the force of work, the force of an organization made up of multiple people, like ants or termites or whatever, which we can also do, except we can create something that can reach the sky, right? For example, compared to termites. Anyways, to finish up, HSD is a concurrent disorder, pretty much, of anything, because it's in 91.91% of you. So you might think, I guarantee, as a psychiatrist, and then my friend a psychologist, and then my friend a social worker, and then my friend a teacher of counseling skills, and then my friend a PhD in whatever, is we can confirm this person has no mental illness in the DSM-5. Well, I can tell you that I'll still detect patterns of HSD in that person, and that this does not lead to a better person having healthier interactions with others, and doesn't lead to the betterment of the human mind or the human condition.